G'day, welcome to Far Out Studios. I'm Nedley. Today we're going to take this grey plastic Necron, we're going to turn it into this. Something that you can be proud of on the tabletop, proud of in your display cabinet. Let's get down to the painting table, let's have a look at how we got there. So we're going to bring our model in. It's going to be already primed Chaos Black. Then we're going to start going over and giving it 2 coats of lead belcher. You could alternatively prime it in lead belcher, but I just like working from black myself. It's a bit easier to access, especially being in a small rural town. We don't have full access to everything, so Chaos Black's the way to go. Once we've done that, let it dry, we'll go in with a 50-50 mix of Agrax Earth Shade and Nuln Oil. I like doing my washes this way. It just really knocks out 2 for 1, and it gives you a really unique dark brown look. I water them down 50-50 with water. If needed, want it a little bit darker, I'll just go over it with a second coat of the wash. Once that's done, I'm going to come in with just pure Nuln Oil, and I'm going to wash that all over all the metal on the guns. I really just want a subtle difference between the metal of the body and the metal of the gun. What I'm going to do, I'm going to grab a sprue. I'm going to start cutting this sprue up, getting some nice long lengths out of it. We're going to actually start making crystals, so grab your hobby knife, start shaving down those square corners, get it to more of a hexagonal looking shape. Take the corners off, make it look really random. Doesn't matter if you go in a little bit deep here, a little bit deep there. Just start taking the edges off, making it not look like sprue anymore. Take any details that are off the surface. Once we've done that, we'll come in at the very end, we'll whittle it down to a little point. Doesn't have to be a perfect point like a pencil, you can leave it a little bit wider, whatever you want to do. But this is going to be some really great simple crystals that just add a little bit of detail to your base. So in no time at all, I've got 5 crystals, I've cut them to a shorter length. I'm going to get ready. We're going to start gluing them on. It's a plastic base with plastic sprue. We'll just use a bit of plastic glue. You can use super glue, but plastic glue really does give it a better bond. I'm going to place 3 on the front, 2 on the back, just for a little bit of interest. Give that plastic glue 10-15 minutes to dry. We're going to grab some PVA glue. Just lather this all over the base. Make sure you get right out to the edges, right in against those crystals, just to be able to put some nice ground cover down. What we'll do, we'll bring our sand in next. We're just going to dunk the whole base in. It's going to be quicker and easier than trying to scatter it on top. Give it a little tap to get the loose stuff off, and then run your finger around the edge to clean up wherever you've got some stones that are dribbled over the edge or a bit of PVA that's gone over the edge, and you'll have this beautiful looking base like that. Give it half an hour or so to dry. You still want that glue underneath a little bit tacky, and what we'll do, we'll come in, we'll mix up some PVA and water roughly to, you know, a 1 part PVA 2 parts water mix, and we're going to start putting that on the base, but we're going to do it slightly differently. We're going to put it on, and while it's still wet, we're going to start pushing it around and create a little bit of unevenness on the earth. Same as you would for making terrain, same as you would for building a board, just to get it so that it's not perfectly smooth and give it that little bit extra realism. Alright, grab your Abaddon Black, we're going to do the weapon casing now. So we'll go everywhere around the weapon that we don't want to be silver. I'll take it down the gorse chambers, I'll do those couple of little cylinders behind the gauze chambers as well, just so it's not too overpowering on the silver, and we've got a bit of contrast on the model there. Just for a bit of difference, I'm going to go slightly different to everyone else, and I'm going to use Sotek green as my bluey green tinge. So we're going to grab that, we're going to go all the way around the shoulder pads. Make sure you get the underneath of the shoulder pads as well, because you will see them as you pick the models up and that sort of stuff. We'll put 2 really good base coats down of this colour. Grab your Retributor armor next. We're going to do this on all the golden areas. I want it to be a nice, bright but warm gold, so we can really have that contrast to the silver. We want to make some bright and some dark on this model, so we're going to use the gold and the silver as the bright, and we're going to go with the Sotek green and the black as the dark, so you've really got something to look at. We're going to make our own wash now for the Sotek green, just to darken it down, but we don't want it to go either blue or green. So what we're going to do, we're going to mix Drakenhof Nightshade and Bieltan Green, water it down 50% with water, and we're going to put 1 or 2 coats over on that, just depending on how light or dark you want it. Over the gold, we're going to grab some Reikland Flesh Shade. This is a really warm wash. It really makes gold pop compared to using Agrax Earthshade. Again, 50% water. If you really feel it needs to be a bit darker, put a second coat of it on. Alright, now that the PVA glue's dried, we've left it overnight, come back the next day, we'll undercoat that. No point getting out a rattle can and that for a little base. We'll just grab some Abaddon Black, chuck that down as a good undercoat and base coat. Make sure you water it down, make sure you push it into all the edges. And here we go, we've got the base coats done, we've got the base undercoated. You could leave it here, just pick out the gauze details, and that'd look alright for the tabletop. We're going to start moving and take it just that one step further to make it look like a display piece, a display army. As you can see, pushing it round, it's really created some nice uneven texture on that base, so that's something I'd recommend to everyone moving forward. What we're going to do, we're going to grab some Ironbreaker and we're going to start highlighting all this metal, so all the raised areas, all the edges of the metal, all the way around, front and back of the model. This is just a first highlight. We're going to do 2. Let's just get this one everywhere first. So do this on the body and on the gun, and we'll move on to the next step. I want a really subtle highlight for the body of my Necron. So what I've done, I've grabbed some Runefang steel. It's a really subtle compared to Stormhost silver. And as you can see with the paintbrush, I'm trying to make the light look like it's coming from that direction. So what I'm doing, I'm picking all the raised areas that face that direction. Anything under that, anything that you wouldn't see from that direction, I'm not going to touch. Keep pulling your paintbrush back, have a look at the direction, make sure that you turn your model, rotate your model so you can see where the light would be hitting, and just target those areas. We've set down the second highlight on our body. We've got our first highlight on the gun, so let's take that one to Stormhost Silver. Again, I just want it to be subtly different to the body, which is why I'm going slightly lighter on this one. We've set our direction in our second highlight of the body, so let's just do exactly the same thing here, and we'll go over the whole gun, all the raised areas, pick all those out. That'll finalize that area, give it that nice two-tone look, so it looks like the light's hitting from a certain direction. Coming in with Mechanicus Standard Grey, we're going to go back and we're going to highlight the whole casing of the gun. All the areas. Doesn't matter if it's facing down, facing up, just pick the whole lot out, all the raised edges. Use the edge of your brush where you can. Where you can't, use just the tip of your brush. Be very, very light with your touch here. You don't want to be heavy-handed and put too much on. If you do, that's okay. Just wash your brush out, use a damp brush, wipe it off. Again, thinking about a directional highlight, we're going to grab Administratum Grey, hit all those areas from where that light source is coming from, that imaginary light source we picked out earlier. So all the corners, all the edges facing that way. Where you can, use the edge of your brush on highlights. Where you can't, use the tip of your brush very carefully, move very slowly with a very light, fine touch. We're going to go ahead, get all this done, all the casings, all the way around the weapon. While we've got this paint out, as you'll see in a moment, we're going to also start picking out the gorse. So those little recesses in the middle, we're going to paint them in a greeny colour later on. Let's chuck down some Administratum Grey and get a first coat going on that now. We're going to do something a little bit tricky here. We're going to grab the Mechanicus Standard Grey and we're going to start coating those crystals on the bases. What we're going to do too, we're going to actually start drawing some lines across the base. Now, this isn't necessarily going to be seen later on, but it's just another cool little effect we can do to make our bases look slightly different from everyone else. So start drawing some lines across, just sketch them out now for thin, get an idea of where you want those lines to be. Once you've done that, we'll come back in with the Mechanicus Standard Grey again, and we'll just fatten them up a bit, make them look a little bit thicker. As you can see, I've gone through and drawn some of those lines on the base. I've thickened them up so they're nice and fat. What we're going to do now, we're going to get our Administratum Grey back out. We're going to start highlighting those crystals. So what you want to do, pick out all those raised edges, start drawing lines on them, leave the Mechanicus Grey in the recesses. I can't stress that enough. Don't just paint it all the way to the bottom. Leave some of that recesses, leave a little triangle of it towards the bottom. That's really going to help with the effect later on. Once you've done those crystals, we're going to move on. We're going to chuck some Administratum Grey down on those lines. Keep it a little bit narrower than your Mechanicus Standard Grey. And once that's done, we'll move on to the next. As you can see, once we've done that Administratum Grey, you get that really cool effect. While you've got the Administratum Grey out, let's grab some Sotek Green. So I've done two highlights here. I've actually mixed them together. So I've gone about a 50-50 mix here. And then I'm also going to do a secondary directional highlight like we have before. And I've just added a bit more Administratum Grey to the mix, roughly 75 to 25%. We're now going to come in and start highlighting the gold, which is going to be a mix of Retributor Armor and Stormhost Silver. It's just going to lighten up that Retributor Armor without introducing another shade. It'll just make that gold look a little bit lighter while keeping the warmth there. With the gold now done, we're going to move on to highlighting the gorse on the weapons. So we'll grab some white scar, and what we're going to do, we're just going to gently dot this on the domed section of the gorse coming through the gorse chambers on the rifle, as well as the mechanical section towards the back. There's a whole heap of raised lines there, you can see it already done. And we'll just highlight each of those raised lines in white, leaving the Administratum Grey in the recess to really help the effect later on. Alright, we'll put our model to the side and we'll grab our base back in and we'll start highlighting those crystals. Try and focus higher on the crystals, leave a little bit of that Administratum Grey towards the bottom. try and pick up all the edges, and let's see if we can leave a little triangle in the bottom as well. It really helps with the effect later on. Once you've done that, all those lines that we've drawn on the bases, we're just going to put a thin line of white in there just for a little bit more contrast. With that done, as you can see, the base now looks great. And what we're going to do, we're going to move that aside, bring our model back and get some Tesseract glow out, and we're going to start painting that along all of those lines down the gorse chambers on the front that we've highlighted earlier, as well as some mechanical sections to the back. Once that's done, we'll put our model aside, bring our base across, and we'll put our Tesseract glow all over the top of our base, so that way the whole lot becomes green. You'll just see these lines throughout. We'll let all that dry for about half an hour, and then we'll come back and start moving on to the next steps. With our Tesseract glow now dry on the base, we're going to come in, we're going to mix this up like a normal paint, so roughly 50-50 water, but we're going to treat it a bit more like a dry brush. So wipe some of that paint off, and we're going to do what's called an overbrush, which is going to pick up most of the details on the base. Then we'll move into our Dawnstone. Again, I mix mine up 50-50 water and then treat it as a normal dry brush over the top. And we'll take that all over the base, and as you can see, those green lines are starting to disappear. Finally, we'll come in with a real fine dry brush of Karak stone over the base. That'll just give it that earthy tone back from being a cold grey, and it'll really finish it and make it look great. If your model's standing on a hero rock, just make sure you grab your basing colours and do that hero rock at the same time. That way it just blends into the base. We'll grab some Xandri dust. I've just got a little skull here on the base, so I'm going to paint that one in with the Xandri dust and just let that one dry before we move on, and we'll chuck. It's time to bring the two together, so what we'll do, we'll grab our model, we'll pull him out of our donor base, and we'll get ready to slot him into our new base. Make sure you grab some glue and glue the pegs so that when it goes in the hole, you can just leave it in there and leave it to dry. So we've got that model now sitting into the base. It's all glued in, it's all dry. We're just going to come in at the very end, and where my thumb is, we're going to paint that rim of the base black, just to really neaten it up and finish it off. But it's ready to go. It's right to go on the tabletop. It looks great. It'll look great in a display case. It'll get you good marks at a tournament too, so it's worth putting that little bit of time in just to do those extra little holes. Well, now we've got that done. It's looking fantastic. It's time to chuck it on the tabletop, chuck it in your display unit, get going on the rest of your army. Like, a couple of key things to remember. Make sure you water down your paints. They're designed to be watered down. Don't use them straight out the pot. Washers, I see heaps of people just grab the washers straight out of the pots, tip them over everywhere. All of a sudden, you've lost a heap of product. So get a pallet, get your washers out on the pallet like any other paint. Work from a pallet, prevents you tipping it over. Watering down your washers. If you water them down a bit, use a bit of Lama medium, bit of water, you'll stretch it a little bit further, you'll get it a little bit more subtle, but the end result will look fantastic. Like I said, if you need to put 2 coats on of a thinner wash, it's better to put 2 coats of a thinner wash than 1 thick wash. Highlighting, keep it subtle, keep it simple, get it done as quick as you can. Whole model took me no more than 3 hours to do. Now that's a character model. If I'm doing a line troop, I could probably do 1 an hour, 1 every hour and a half. So you'll knock them out pretty quick once you get a routine going and a rhythm going. Most importantly, just have fun. It's your hobby. Do it the way you want to do it. Do it to the standard you want. Don't worry about what anyone else says. We've got some awesome videos coming up. We're going to go to the old world. We're going to go to Necromunda. We're going to go to Mordheim. We're going all over the place. Make sure you come along for the journey. Look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good one.